Okay, so they're doing the Seattle Seahawks record prediction. So looking at their roster, their skill position players are great. Kenneth Walker, JSN, Metcalf, Lockett, Walker, I already mentioned him. They all look great, but offensive line I think is definitely concerning. They have a bunch of young players that they're banking on improving, who had an up and down players like I don't know, like Lucas or Cross, who had an up and down rookie season, and Seattle is banking on the offensive line to improve. And I think it's unrealistic to assume that Geno Smith will have an even better season than he did last year. The defense, though, not as bad as I thought, but only slightly better. Their defensive line isn't anything special. Their linebackers, I think their linebackers are fine. Brooks, Wagner, I think make a good duo. Their secondary, which I thought was a lot better than I thought, with guys like Woolen, Adams, who's not really that good anymore, but still Diggs, Witherspoon. So their defense still not like still I think below average, but not as like a bottom five unit. So you have your first game versus the Rams. Rams getting a bunch of players back from injuries. Matthew Stafford coming back. But the Rams, they shed so much talent. Their only defensive player that people know anymore is Aaron Donald. Offense, as long as the Seahawks can contain their offense a little bit, I think the Seahawks offense should go straight through that butter Rams defense. It is a divisional game, so it's not going to be a clear victory, but I'm taking the Seahawks in week one. Then you have them versus the Lions. Lions an upstart team again, like I said. Lions defense similar to the Seahawks, brought in a few players, but they still have a few holes. So Seahawks should be able to exploit that. But but the Seahawks defense, I don't think will be good enough to contain the Lions offense, and this one's going to be come down to which offense is better, pretty much like last year. And I'm taking the Lions here. That, and they also have a little bit of home field advantage. Then you have Denver versus the Panthers. Panthers similarly another young team. Their defense though I think is definitely a little bit underrated. But Seahawks have a very good offense though, which just might cancel out a good defense. And I think the Panthers offense is too inexperienced with Bryce Young and the wide receivers that like Chark, who I don't think is that good. But still I'm gonna take the Seahawks here. Then you have a Monday nighter against the Giants. Giants Giants, scrappy team. I think the Giants defense last year overperformed, and they're still not great, but maybe they give Seattle a little bit of trouble. And that Giants offense is not great unless Saquon comes back. But if Saquon comes back, I think they can run over that Seahawks defense. And Giants have home field advantage, so I'm taking the Giants here. Then you have Denver versus the Bengals. Seahawks are coming off a bye, but the Bengals have a great trio of wide receivers: Higgins, Chase, um, Boyd, and Mixon, who should bounce back, and also Burrow. I don't think the Seahawks defense can contain them, but the Bengals defense lost a couple of pieces like Bates, a couple of pieces in their secondary, Eli. As long as Seahawks contain Bengals pass rush, which I think they can be since they're coming off a bye, I'm gonna take the Seahawks here. You have a game versus the Cardinals. Cardinals is pretty much a rebuilding team, but it's a divisional game, so I'm gonna give the Cardinals probably their first win. And I think the Seahawks will be celebrating too much coming off a victory against the Bengals, so I'm gonna take the Cardinals. You have a game versus the Browns. Um, Browns, Deshaun Watson, not sure how he's gonna do, but I think he might struggle against Seahawks secondary. But Nick Chubb is the X factor, so I think he's gonna determine this game. If Chubb has a good game, I think Browns win. If Chubb has a bad game, I think the Seahawks win. The Browns defense, I think is not great. And Seahawks have home field advantage, so I'm taking the Seahawks here. And then you have Denver versus the Ravens. Ravens, I think that their offense is just going to be too much for the Seahawks to handle. That run game, that option is going to be too much stressed out on the linebackers. I think Bobby Wagner is probably going to have a little bit of a cliff. And that Ravens defense is good enough to contain that Seahawks offense. So I'm taking the Seahawks here. Or the Ravens here, never mind. And and then you have them, and then you have a game versus the Commanders. As long as the Seahawks contain the Commanders' defensive line, Seahawks should win. Washington's secondary is not great and their offense is not great. So as long as Seahawks contain that Commanders' offensive line, Seahawks should get the win. And you have a game against the Rams. Rams are coming off a bye, and they do have to travel to LA, but Rams are rebuilding. I see the Seahawks for once sweeping. Sweeping. And you have a game versus the Niners. It is a Thursday nighter, so the Niners or Seahawks have a huge home field advantage. But I don't think the Seahawks are ready to face the Niners offense. Niners offense, they still have players like Christian McCaffrey who might run wild, Debo, Kittle. I think there will be too much stress on that Seahawks defense, and Niners still have one of the best defenses, so I'm gonna take the Niners. And then you have, similarly to the Cowboys, their talent is just too much for the Seahawks to handle, so I'm gonna take the Cowboys. And then you have a game versus the San Fran. San Fran has home field advantage, and I do think San Francisco sweeps the Seahawks pretty much for the same reasons I said up here. So I'm gonna take the San Fran here. And then you have a game versus the Eagles. Eagles, there's NFC champions. Seahawks have huge home field advantage. I think Eagles offense should take a step back a little bit. I think the Seahawks defense should maybe able to contain Eagles passing game, and I just see the upside. I think this is an upset game, and the Seahawks are going to upset the Eagles. And you have Denver versus Titans. Derrick Henry, I think, will run all over that Seahawks defense, so I'm going to take the Titans here. And then you have a game versus the Steelers. Ooh, this one should not be overlooked. I think this one's going to be another one of those down the stretch that actually matter and going to be flexed onto prime time or something like that. Steelers, their defense with Mike Tomlin will always be tough. They should be able to shut down Walker and cause problems, but I don't trust that Steelers offense enough, so I'm taking the Seahawks. And you have a game versus the Cardinals. I have the Cardinals winning the first game. Cardinals are not going to sweep the Seahawks, so I'm taking the Seahawks. So in the end, after I'm going 9-8, 3-2 in the division, 6-2 at home, and 3-6 away.